Welcome to See the Stories, the signature segment of Tarian News Show. So did you know that dancing is a fantastic form of cardio? It can improve your balance, strength, and even boost your mental and emotional health. So speaking of dance, Indra, what's your favorite dance style?
Dance that they don't judge me however I move, because I cannot.
But you do dance, right?
I don't want to say yes.
Okay then. So today on our signature segment, we will dive into the world of jazz dance. Joining us in the studio is Aldafi Adnan, a musical theater and jazz dance teacher. So thank you for coming to our studio. We shall call you?
Duffy.
Duffy, okay,
yes.
Thank you for coming. And first and foremost, can you tell us what jazz dance is and what how jazz dance differs from other dance styles?
Well, I think for me, jazz dance is a very dynamic and fluid style of dance. It originated in 20th century America by the African American cultures, but it's very heavily influenced also by the European classical dance such as ballet.
Okay.
Yes, and what makes it differs from other style of dance is because for jazz itself, it has a lot of variety, actually. It's very famous because of musical theater, but then nowadays it has evolved into like commercial jazz, contemporary jazz, and a lot of different other genres.
Very interesting.
So the jazz itself, like as you mentioned, it sounds like it's already evolved. Like there's contemporary jazz and all that kind of stuff. Again, you mentioned it started about like almost like 100 years ago. So how does the dance style itself evolve throughout the years?
Well, it's started to become popular back in the 1930s until 1950s America because of musical theater. It was the golden age of Broadway at that time, and then jazz is very popular choice of choreography that is being used there. We have a lot of famous choreographers from musicals back then, like Jerome Robbins, who's famous for choreographing West Side Story, and then there are other choreographers such as Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon that has its own style of jazz dance that is very famous and studied until now. And because of that popularity, jazz is still widely used until now, especially in musical theater industries, you know. But then it has evolved into other genres as well. Like commercial jazz is used by a lot of pop stars, such as Michael Jackson.
Oh, that's
Janet
commercial
Jackson.
jazz.
That's commercial jazz, yes. And then if you watch So You Think You Can Dance, you know, like that dance reality show, it has a lot of contemporary jazz, which is very like slow ballad and has a lot of emotions kind of
But it's part of jazz as well.
It's part of jazz as well. So jazz has evolved into a different other genres of dances.
I see. So it has evolved to commercial dance.
Commercial
and
dance.
And also like jazz and ballet too.
Yes.
But what are the characteristics, the core characteristic of jazz dance itself?
Well, it shares a lot of similarities with ballet in terms of the basic techniques, you know. But I like to call jazz as like the rebel siblings of ballet.
I like that.
Like ballet is so like prim and proper, strict with postures. Yes, and jazz is a lot more dynamic and fluid. You know, like it has a lot of freedom of expressions, a lot of more variety as well. There's a lot of like isolations. Contractions and also like a lot of extensions in terms of the movements compared to like ballet, which is like very strict and like proper, you know.
So the techniques are more strict in ballet.
Yes.
Now, again, back to jazz has so many forms. Like if you talk about jazz in the birthplace, New Orleans, we're talking about like heavy brass, like giant jazz. So when we're talking about jazz dance, what kind of type of music or what type of jazz are we talking about here that we can do the dance with?
Well, like for me, because I grew up in a musical theater background, right? So I use a lot of musical theater music in my jazz dance.
Can you give us an example?
Like Chicago, like very famous movie, and then like, you know, The Greatest Showman, that kind of style.
I like that one.
Yes, that kind of jazz, musical theater jazz music. But then back then it was very popular, like you said, in New Orleans with like big band music, like with classic like Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald and those kind. But then nowadays it's also very, you can use like popular music as well, you know, like pop music and all that still can be used.
So it's not necessarily have to be jazz. Like you know, the movie Soul. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, like that's jazz,
yeah.
but like I cannot imagine like you doing a dance. Those kind of jazz.
Well, that's how it began last time, you know, like during that big band era, like the brass New Orleans. But then, as I've said, it has evolved over time. Yeah.
I see. And what is the best attire and footwear for jazz dance? Because we here, Indra and I want to learn the basic of jazz dance. Is it appropriate, or we have to possess certain attire?
Well, it's not as strict as ballet, like I mentioned. So you can wear basically any clothes as long as it's not limiting your movement. So clothes that you can move freely, like
so like this
like
is enough.
Exercise outfit. It's good enough. But I would recommend you wear something that is tight fitting as well, so that we can see your alignment and postures as well.
Just like in ballet.
Just like in ballet, postures. Yes.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Now, but in terms of shoes, we can also wear just simply like training shoes and sinker shoes. So it's fine.
Not like flat shoes in ballet.
Yes, you don't have to.
Interesting, because in my mind, it was like for a second when they say jazz dance, it was like the tap dance, because like that's kind of like the rhythm.
Yeah.
And then, so we can actually do whatever, like this shoes actually might work.
Yeah, this shoes can work as well.
So no expensive culture, like, you know, like certain brand that we want to put on.
Well, no. You can if you want to, you know. Well, there are also specific shoes like jazz shoes that you can wear, but it's not really necessarily anymore to be worn.
What kind of shoes do jazz dancers use?
It looks like a ballet flat, but then it's more.
It has heels?
It doesn't have a heels.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a flat, and it's like a slip-on kind of shoes.
Oh, okay.
It has more support compared to ballet shoes, though.
Okay. So maybe it hurts a little bit less.
Yes.
Okay, and as for beginners, should the focus be on learning choreography or mastering the techniques?
Well, technique is definitely very important because especially if you never learned dance before, getting your techniques right will do you good for a long time, especially if you want to have a long, proper dance career, you know. Because if you just learn the choreography without understanding the techniques,
it's gonna be difficult.
It's gonna be difficult, and you might risk of getting injury.
Oh no.
Yeah. So no.
All right.
All right. Well, Duffy, we want to try to learn this, but before all that, we're gonna go for a break. So we're gonna prepare for that, and after the break, Duffy here will teach us some jazz dance movements. So don't go anywhere.